all happy to be back in the live session for answering your queries related to orals specifically. But at the same time, it's not really necessary that you have to restrict yourself to just orals. So it's just about any questions related to whatever you're interested in knowing, we'll be very happy to answer. And I also have with me Captain Deepak Kapoor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes. So, as we have already done our introductions in the earlier session itself, so we just want to start off right away with the question answer session so that we try and answer as many as possible. Right? Thank you very much. Yes. Yes, sir. Sir, Captain Deepak Kapoor, sir, can you take the first question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, the first question is from Madhav. It is regarding the Isla void system. I think very good question you have asked. Practical one. It's a part of Cardinal system, Isla region A and region B. And Cardinal mark system has no region A or region B. It's only for little mark. Now, your question is you are coming from south, going towards north, and right ahead you see a north marking buoy. Naturally, if you see as per the principle, you are in a danger area. Either the south cardinal mark is missing, you missed out, or it has drifted, and you have landed up in a dangerous area. Under these circumstances, all I would say that you should look at the chart carefully, look for the navigational warning, meanwhile slow down, inform the master, increase the lookout, go to the safest side, do your extensive assessment of the situation, put your engines on standby, steering system in the maneuvering mode or manual mode, and once you have done the assessment, you have the increased watch keeping schedule, alter course to the safest area and try and pass north of this buoy. I suggest this would be a complete answer covering the principal aspect of cardinal mark system of the Isla buoy. At the same time, we have the operational aspect, COLREG, safety of navigation, watch keeping. I think this is how you need to answer, covering all aspects of functions, whether at support level or operational level or at management level.
Fine. Okay. The next question I have is, what is the difference between off-course alarm and off-heading alarm? Okay. Uh, if you see the difference, this is specific to ECDIS. It's not just about autopilot system. So when you say you're talking about off-course alarm, what really is happening in your ECDIS is, depending on the cross-track margin which you set. So accordingly, when you're out of that cross-track margin limit which you set for off-course alarm, you'll get the alarm for it. Whereas in the true sense, what we used to call off-course alarm in your autopilot, that in ECDIS terms is the right way to describe it is off-heading alarm. So there, whatever is your heading which you have been assigned to make, if your steering is not capable of handling that and it drifts away from the heading which you have set, that is called off-heading alarm. In autopilot, there is no such difference. There is only one thing called off-course alarm, and that is related to the setting of your heading which you put on your autopilot. So the difference comes only in the case of ECDIS between off course and off heading alarm. Right. Let me see the next question.
I think Madhav had asked a question on
Yes.
seaworthy.
Correct. Yes.
Well, it's a primary duty of the ship owner, master, and the crew is to ensure the vessel is seaworthy. Well, seaworthy is a relative term. It depends on the type of the vessel, area of operation, type of hazards you are likely to encounter, and the kind of crew you have on board. Therefore, seaworthy in legal term can be categorized in the following area. Number one will be technical seaworthiness, which means it is technically fit to undertake a voyage, to encounter the perils of the sea, and have a successful marine adventure. So this is confirmed through the three most important statutory mandatory certificates: SAFCON, safety equipment, and SRT. So this makes it seaworthy. You can also add here certificate of class. Second aspect would be portworthiness. Please remember, portworthiness is technical fitness plus cargo worthiness plus safe manning worthiness. So port worthiness, while the vessel is in port, the port expects that the vessel should be in seaworthy condition. Vessel shall not under any circumstances be substandard, unsafe, or unseaworthy. Well, that is ensured if you are technically fit. Cargo gear is totally in working order. The people who are operating the cargo gear, they are qualified, even if it is being done by the steward or person. And the third is a voyage worthiness. Voyage worthiness means vessel has got a safe manning document, vessel has got insurance certificate, vessel has got navigation permit or trading license, vessel has got all qualified person, vessel has got food, water, bunkers, stores, etc. Even US has concluded one thing: even the wages have not been paid, the vessel is considered as unseaworthy. I suppose I have covered all aspects of unseaworthy. So please, wherever this question is asked, you can elaborate individually. Since you have a good idea about seaworthy now, you can expand it. Please remember, section 334 of the MS Act defines unseaworthy, but it does not define seaworthy. So you can look at section 334 of the MS Act 1958.
Thank you very much, sir. I think there are some things which I have also learned today. So thank you so much. The next question: true vectors, relative vectors, true trails. Okay, okay. See, I uh, somewhat understand what you really want to ask. So let me just see how best I can clarify. The first thing is vectors. Purpose of vectors is to show the predicted track of targets. It's just a future prediction, how the target is going to move. So that is something which is related to the target's motion. So when you have relative vector, it shows in relation to your own vessel how the target is approaching. Whereas true vector of a target shows in what real direction the target is heading. So which one to use? Both have their own plus and minus. So in the case of true vector, it will show you the real heading of a target, but from it you really don't know how it is going to finally approach towards your vessel. So for that purpose, relative vectors are very useful. So when you find that your relative vector of a target is pointing towards your own ship position, is in the direction of your own ship's position, you know for sure that there is a possibility of a risk of collision or a close quarter situation. So once you decide on what is a target which is of threat to you, after that you can change over to true vector to understand the aspect and to decide on which rule applies in that situation and accordingly plan your action. So for that purpose, I would say both these vectors are equally important. So do not choose one over the other. Each has its own advantage and disadvantage. So the first most important thing is to understand whether there is going to be a risk of collision with any target. For that, relative vectors are useful. Then on deciding what situation it is and accordingly which rule to apply, the true vectors are useful. Now comes the trail. Trail are the past track of a target. And if you really see, there is absolutely no use as far as relative trails are concerned. Whereas what is useful to you is the true trails. But with true trails, what you are actually looking at is if any alteration has been made by the target vessel. So for that purpose, you are looking at true trails. But one disadvantage of trail is you cannot make out really whether the target has changed speed. So for that purpose only, in your radar or ARPA, you have another option called past position. So that gives you just dots at a given interval. The mandatory requirement is at least every 2 minutes, 4 dots. So the purpose of those past position, by checking the gaps between the dots, you will be able to make out whether there is any change in speed, which you cannot make out with trails. So I think that's what your question should be, and I hope I have answered it. Thank you.
Madhav has asked another question with regard to ROR. I think, Madhav, there are 2-3 questions we have raised. I think the answer is not straightforward if you really want to understand ROR in a real sense. First of all, the mine clearance vessel generally will be a part of the naval force. Many students, they are having a wrong notion that the ROR is not applicable to warships or men of war. Let me remove first of all this misconception. If you may have, I don't think you seem to be having this. Rule number 1 is applicable to application to all vessels, which includes men of war. Men of war can be given exemption under 1E, but they are required to follow this. Please remember, UNCLOS says all vessels to be in peaceful manner they have prayed. So men of war generally overtake or take over during the warlike situation. This is a peaceful situation. Coming to this, now once the war is over, naturally the enemy or the countries who are at war, they must have laid mines at various locations to destroy their surface crafts. So therefore, it is the naval force they will be deploying. They have the trained manpower. And please remember, mine clearance vessels are part of vessel restricted inability to maneuver. So rule number 3 gives the definition very, very clearly. And rule number 18 is clearly stating, well, it is the powered vessel which remains out of the way because it is compliant, SOLAS compliant, MARPOL compliant, STCW compliant, load line compliant. So therefore, they must stay out of this. Now the question comes 1,000 meters. I suppose 1,000 meter must be an empirical formula the naval forces must have evaluated. If you really want a correct answer, you can check the naval authorities. They have various manuals. They have a manual for combat equipment. They have a manual for seamanship, LSA, FFA, firefighting. So that will clearly define why it is 1,000. Now 1,000 is within that these mine clearances vessels are operating. And you are required to stay away from that. So in fact, the safety margin is much more than 1 kilometer, I would say, from land aspect. 1,000 meters, 1 kilometer. A good mariner will certainly take much wider clearance, and your safety management system will provide CPA from a dangerous situation more than 1 mile, 2 mile, or 3 mile. So I would compare COLREG, no imminent danger, risk of collision, and close quarter. So in this situation, 1000 meter means it is more than risk of collision. There is no risk whatsoever. In addition to that, the concerned nav area would also be issuing nav areas. That means there will be a navigational warning with regard to mine clearances. Or if they are conducting fire and military exercise area, they might deploy special mark boys also in those areas. So I think this is the broad area you can look into this. Exact answer, I'm sure you will get it in the combat manual, which is developed by the naval authorities. Second question, I would quickly wind it up. What is displacement, non-displacement mode of air cushion vessel? Well, there are three types of vessel now under ROR. One is vessels, the normal merchant vessels, which are displacing. So you can call it they have a displaced tonnage, light displacement tonnage, or a low displacement tonnage as per the loading condition, ballast condition, or no ballast at all. Second one is non-displacement. So that means they are not displacing any water at all. One new craft has been added, wings and ground crafts. Wings and ground, in fact, they are not displacing anything. They are above the water surface, very close to the water surface, maybe a meter or 2 meters. Therefore, these vessels are considered as powered in vessel. Uh, they have to be behaved or conducted like a powered in vessel. Your another question comes that what are the hazards associated with air cushion vessel? You'll see the hazards associated with air cushion vessels are very, very clear, very simple. First of all, they have a limitation of size, number one. Number two, they displace water and they just float on the surface. You can have what I say, catamaran, we can be termed as non-displacement. You can have hydrofoil. They have non-displacement mode or displacement mode. They have a limitation with regard to wind force. Beaufort scale increases 3 to 4 miles, 3 to 4 scale, they cannot operate. So they have to operate in a limited area. So they can become vulnerable if we pass very close. Their speed is very, very high. And in case, if they have any critical failure, they may come very close. It will be a close quarter situation. And hence, they are very, very vulnerable crafts. It is important, it is the powered in vessel, fully powered in vessel, compliant COLREG. They should stay away, give a wide berth, and exercise ordinary practice of seamen, good practice of seamanship, and including limitation of the craft, and take into account all navigational dangers in mind. Another question, I quickly finish it up. How will you find that the vessel, which part of the hull is aground? Well, again, it's a very complicated question to answer. Now, let me tell you one thing. Under ISM code clause 9, you have a contingency plan or emergency plan for 5 or 7 situation which is given by IMO under integrated contingency planning. One is fire, second is damage to ship, personal accident, cargo shifting or cargo damage, pollution, security, and abandoned ship. Here we are talking about damage to ship. Under damage to ship, there are so many situations I can clear. Now, grounding and stranding, they are two different terms. Let's be very clear. Grounding generally means in just touching, either intentionally or accidentally. Grounding, what happens? She may move here and there. You can find out either through the grounding, or you can look at the position of the vessel and where you have landed up. The complete assessment has to be done. The movement, the tanker, any rupture has taken place. I can tell you for sure that the grounding generally will take place in a soft bottom, and you will be able to take the vessel out with your own resources. If it is stranding, well, it's a very, very ticklish issue. In stranding, I think it's very, very easy to find out because there will be a rupture, there could be a breach of hull. You will immediately come to know which part is really sitting forward, off, and you can also make out from hit and trial method that by turning engines, by moving your steering system, by using a ground tackle, these are the few areas I think you should be able to find out which exactly part the vessel is touching. Your damage stability can also help you, and you can get this. And one more question I would just quickly finish is, why do we see use STW in collision avoidance? I
Speed through
don't
water.
understand what do you mean by STCW, STW.
Speed through
Oh,
water.
okay, you can say, okay, let me see that. I
Yeah.
get your point. I think most of the students, they are looking at COLREG in standalone situation. For your information, under SOLAS 9048, COLREG was part of SOLAS. SOLAS 1960, COLREG was part of SOLAS. It's only after IMO was formed in 1958 when it was enacted, SOLAS was segregated. Please remember, COLREG cannot be made operational unless you follow SOLAS Chapter 5 Safety of Navigation, and unless you follow watch keeping arrangement, which is given in Chapter 8 of STCW. Chapter 8 is clearly saying principle and standard of watch keeping. What is the principle? Fitness for duty. Second, watch keeping schedule. Third, lookout. Fourth, safe speed. Fifth, voyage planning. So without that, collision avoidance cannot be taking place. And you have radar for collision avoidance. Captain Anand Saab rightly pointed out ECDIS for grounding, anti-grounding. I think that covers all aspects of this.
Yes. So I think I just want to add to this air cushion vessel.
Please.
Yes. If you see that there is a flashing light, I think it was again asked by Madhav or JC. Okay, yeah. Go ahead. So that why we need that flashing light? Because as per rule, she has to take action as a power drone vessel. Why that extra flashing light? Is because when there is a force 2 or 3 wind blowing across, you will find that because they are operating in a non-displacement mode, they are affected very heavily by the breeze because they don't have that friction with water. So you will find that sometimes when you look at it on I mean, when you are seeing it from the bridge, you will find that the way it is heading and the way it is actually making way, you find it's a huge difference sometimes. For this reason, for you to be aware that this is a property of this air cushion vessel where you may have such wide difference, they have given that extra lighting for you to be extra careful when looking at it. Otherwise, sometimes it is totally confusing when you see such kind of vessels. Force 3, as Captain Kapoor said, Force 4 and all, they may find it very difficult to operate. Force 3 itself, you will find that they are heading and the direction making good. There is a big difference. The other thing about to find out which part of the hull is aground. See, I would say the most easiest tool to use is your handlet line. So with this, you can find out what is the depth and draft and compare it. But one more way of the simple way of putting it is, if you find that because of this grounding, there is a trim change by stern. You can be very sure that it is the forward part of your ship which is run aground. If there is a trim change by head, you know it's the aft part of the ship which is aground. So this is just a, I mean, quick tool, but the most uh, reliable tool in this case will be your handlet line, which is why it is still there on board. It's a requirement on board your vessels, because it's not like those days where people didn't have any other means to measure depth. They used these handlet lines. Whereas nowadays you have the echo sounders, so you don't really need handlet line, but it is still there required by ships to carry because of this grounding problem. Squint angle. I hope I'm giving you the right answer. I think so. Squint angle normally means the difference between the direction your radar scanner is pointing out and the PPI of your radar screen, the alignment. If there is any slight mismatch, that angle is called squint. Now, if it is a very small angle, they will give a correction which you can apply. But these are all in something which I've seen in older equipments, not much in the modern equipments. So they give that correction which you need to apply to ensure that this mismatch is corrected. Because you need to be very clear that how radar is able to give you the correct direction of target is purely by aligning your scanner with your PPI. So this alignment is very important to get the correct direction of target. If there is a slight mismatch, this angle is called squint angle, which for smaller angles, they just give you the correction which you can apply. But if it is large, you have to call a technician to get it corrected. That's squint angle. Coefficient E in magnetism. Okay, okay. Uh, I really can't recollect coefficient E now, but probably in the next oral session I can get back to this question in detail. Okay, I think that's all the number of questions which are there in YouTube. So, anything else you want to add, sir?
No, that's all. I think that's clear enough. I think you've covered everything.
Yes. Yes, I
Yes,
think
we can
then
wind up. Yes.
wind up. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Captain Anand, thank you note, please.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, right. I think we did have quite a few participants asking a good number of very important questions, which I think probably just a couple of you have asked questions, but I'm sure it's going to benefit a lot of people when they see these videos later also. So I think these questions have been helping us a lot in making sure that we also go back, check, verify, and as I said, I told you about this coefficient E, which I will be explaining it to you in the next session for sure. So this is also keeping us on our toes to make sure that we also are giving you the current, updated, and correct information. So in case you have any feedback, please do send it to us at efeedback@himtmarine.com. We will be happy to include any suggestions, improvements, whatever you need. Uh, in case you have any other questions to be answered, please note it down and keep it so that in the next session, whenever we are going to meet, it will be again, it's going to be a feature every Saturday. So we will again take up those questions. And we are also looking at one option of adding some other means by which you can send the questions to us, which we will update you as soon as that system is ready.